Renegotiating your contract, okay? So, can I give you some numbers that may make you want to renegotiate your contract, even if right now you don't feel like you need to negotiate your contract, renegotiate your contract. But, do what now? Love you some numbers? All right, DC, well, here you go. These numbers are going to, well, they may mess with your mind. All right, Mr. Dak Prescott. Any Cowboy fans in the room? Okay, all right, thank you both. All right, so Dak Prescott, per game, not in a year, per game, pulls down $2.3 million a game. Not bad, huh? Right? How you like those numbers, DC? Not so bad. All right. Maybe Patrick Mahomes, right? Doesn't make quite that much. All right. But he's still in the higher end district. $900,000 a game, right? You're like, man, I need to renegotiate my contract. What about Steph Curry? Steph makes $632,000 a game, but they play 87 games, okay? So, anyway, there's some contract numbers for you just to ponder. If you're one of those who ponder numbers, or contracts, there you go. Maybe think about renegotiating that contract. And so let's talk about a couple different types of contracts today we're going to talk about. We're really going to just kind of breeze by one and really focus on the other. Contract number one is your salvation, okay? And that is between God and you. Those are the parties involved in the contract negotiations, per se. And that contract is based on grace through faith. Your salvation is, and those terms in that contract are non-negotiable, right? Because God's already laid out the terms of that contract, and those terms are non-negotiable. It is by grace through faith. Verse you know well, you've learned it, you know it in your mind and your heart, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith, which is what Hebrews chapter 11 is all about, through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. So those are the terms of the conditions of our salvation. This contract of salvation really deals with your position legally from a legal standpoint, okay? And also it affects your eternal security, okay? So that's what it affects. Your position legally, your legal standing before God, and also your eternal security. This is not Ephesians 2:8-9. This is Romans chapter 3. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and all are justified freely. Justified, as you know, we talked about before, means that you have been legally declared innocent before God. Okay? You've legally been declared innocent before God for all time. That is your eternal standing and position by His grace, through whom the redemption that comes by Jesus Christ, from Romans chapter 3. And this contract of salvation benefits God, which is a little bit strange to say. Let me kind of clarify what I'm saying when it says benefits God, and it also obviously benefits you. Benefits God, just kind of follow me on this. Not that God ever works out of a weak standpoint from negotiations, or is in a place where He is ever running in a deficit or never in control. So it does not benefit Him in that way, but it benefits God from the aspect of when you say yes to Jesus Christ, it gets His name and His glory out even more so, right? So when you share your testimony and you share what you were, who you were, how your mind worked, how your heart worked before Jesus Christ, and that in the middle of all that sinfulness that you and I were in the middle of pre-Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ died for us anyway out of His great love for us, right? And we tell that story, then that gives God all the glory. So in that particular way, if you want to look at it as a benefit to God, that does benefit Him, and then also it benefits you in this contract, obviously, for the obvious, for salvation. But there's another contract today that I want to really talk about. This contract number 2 that we're talking about today, really has to do with your relationship with the Lord. Okay? And then the parties in this, obviously the Lord will be part of that, okay? But really the negotiators at the table are really you and yourself. You said that sounds kind of strange, Elliott. Like how can it be two places at once at the same table? Well, today, what my prayer is for myself, what my prayer is for you, and those of us watching online would be this, that we would renegotiate, rethink the way we see certain things that we'll get into in just a moment here, that we'll come to terms and maybe even walk out of this room seeing things differently as we renegotiate a few things with ourselves. That we need to come to terms with a few things with ourselves, right? We need to come to a certain understanding before we leave the room with ourselves about a few things. Now, this contract, number 2, deals with trust and obedience, and this is negotiable in a certain standpoint, okay? Meaning that you have the option on this, of course you do with salvation as well, but you have the option in this contract to walk closely with the Lord, especially when times are difficult, or to maybe fade away and follow the Lord at a distance. And so that part of this contract is negotiable, but this contract affects your personal, your practical life, your daily walk. So that this contract affects every single moment of your day, your practical life, and your daily walk. And this contract comes with benefits. Obviously, the first one does too. The salvation, you understand those benefits of eternal life. But this contract benefits you with certain bonuses and rewards. Specifically, we'll get into this, but look at Hebrews 11, verse 6. It says, "And without God it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." That this contract comes with certain bonuses and certain rewards. But we need to redefine our understanding of what rewards are. We need to redefine our understanding of what rewards are. And these rewards are not primarily in the physical realm, but primarily in the spiritual realm that these rewards come. And specifically, this reward is knowing God closely. So positionally, we are changed with our salvation. In contract number 1, we said yes to Jesus Christ and place our faith in him. We are set positionally with the Lord. Our standing has totally changed for eternity. Can I get an amen on that? All right, and that's a very good thing. Contract number 2, once again, is extremely practical. It's the day-to-day. It comes with rewards, and that reward is knowing God closely, having a personal relationship with the Lord in an intimate type of way. Earnestly seeking the Lord to know him. That's what we want to earnestly seek the Lord to know him. So why are we earnestly seeking the Lord? Simply, Lord, just to know you. But don't earnestly seek the Lord just to get his stuff and to get physical blessings from him. Now, those physical blessings may come, but primarily those rewards, the bonuses, quote unquote, that come from following the Lord very closely in your life, those rewards are coming in the spiritual realm, and that specific reward is simply knowing the Lord, having a relationship with him that is close and intimate. But there are some people who seek the Lord earnestly just to get his blessings and just to get his stuff transferred over to your stuff. Okay? And so we need to be careful about that. So to reiterate 11 verse 6, Hebrews 11 verse 6, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists." Okay? Which means you must have an object to your faith, and the object of our faith is God himself, and that God must be a reality. So we hear a lot in our culture, we just have to have faith. I have faith, I have faith, I have faith. The next question we should ask when someone says that, faith in what? Or faith in who? Faith in whom? Which one could it be? Not an English major, not so sure. But you have to have an object to your faith. You're just having faith in faith, or just having a positive attitude, or just believing that things are going to turn out okay, or just having faith really means absolutely nothing. The strong part of your faith is actually the object you put it in. In fact, your faith is only as strong as the object that you put your faith in. And so when you place your faith in the Lord, then you are placing your faith in the strongest person that you could place your faith in. And that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. So when we seek the Lord earnestly, he will reward us with his presence. So if our faith did not have an object, the Lord, if our faith did not have an object, our faith would be reduced down to wishful thinking, and that's all it could be. So without placing your faith in the Lord Jesus Christ for salvation or for the day-to-day, right? Then all you're doing, if you just place your faith in faith, is just reduced down to wishful thinking. If our seeking has no reward, our seeking will be reduced to a frustrating, meaningless, and empty promise that God is laying out there that you can find me, but if that reward is not true, that if you earnestly seek me, you will find me, and I will show myself to you. If that's not true, then that just becomes very frustrating and very meaningless and very empty very quickly, right? So Psalm 9, verse 9 and 10 says this, those who know your name trust in you, for you, Lord, have, listen to this, have never forsaken those who seek you. You have never forsaken those who seek you. So we can go away today, even if you're going through difficult times right now in your life, you can go away today knowing, Lord, if I earnestly seek you, that you will never forsake those who earnestly seek you, and those who seek you will find you because you want to be found. You want to be found. You're not playing hide and seek with us. You're not trying to hide from us. You want to be found. And you have never forsaken the people who earnestly seek you. A friend of mine, Dr. Bob Hathcock, man, he is one of the greatest men I know. He loves the Lord and his wife, Linda. He said this, it seems like those who seek God are always bumping into him. Isn't that true? Don't you see that in your own life as well? The times that you are really seeking the Lord earnestly with everything that you have, you seem to bump into him everywhere you turn. But also the opposite is true. You know the times in your life when you're not doing so well spiritually and you're not seeking the Lord at all. Quite frankly, you're just seeking your own will and your own way, and the Lord is really, you want to push him far away. You're not seeking him at all. It seems like the Lord never, ever, ever shows up in those people's lives. But it seems like those who seek God are always bumping into him. Well, we're in Hebrews chapter 11. If you haven't figured that out already, here's where we are. And you say you want to qualify that with some verses, like verses 1 through 5. Oh, no, my friends. Can we just read the whole chapter? You like say, what? Let me check my timepiece. Okay. All right. So we're going to read this whole chapter. Are you okay with that? Okay. All right. Well, let's get into this particular contract. Okay. Actually, the first part of this contract is really in verses 11, verse 1 through 35 and a half, through 35.5, if you will. Okay. Now, let's see what it says. And by the way, as you know, this is the Faith Hall of Fame. So this is like tiptoeing through the tulips in the Old Testament, right? We're just skipping through the Old Testament, and Hebrews chapter 11 is hitting the high spots of the heroes of the faith. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. And by faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. By faith Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, and through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, and God testifying of his gifts, and through it he, being still dead, speaks. And by faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him away. But before he was taken, he had this testimony that he had pleased God. But without faith, it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he exists, the verse we read before, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently or earnestly seek him. In verse 7, by faith, Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, the flood, the water, moved with godly fear, preparing an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And by faith, in verse 11, by faith, Sarah herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful. We don't just come to God in faith, but he is the faithful one we come to, who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born as many as the stars of the sky, in multitude, innumerable as the sands which is by the seashore. These all died in faith, not having received the promise, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return. But now they desire a better situation, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. In verse 17, by faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he had received the promise, offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called. And concluding that God was able to raise up, even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. In verse 20, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning these things to come. By faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. By faith Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave up instructions concerning his bones. You with me still? Okay, all right. A few more to go, my friends. By faith Moses, when he was born, was hidden 3 months by his parents, because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's command. By faith Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. And by faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of the blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. Verse 29. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, whereas the Egyptians, attempting to do so, were drowned. By faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they were encircled for 7 days. By faith the harlot Rahab did not perish with those who did not believe, when she had received the spies with peace. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, and became valiant in battle, turned to fight the enemies of the aliens, and women received back their dead, raised to life again. That's 1 through 35. Now, just to recap, because I know that was very long, but just to hit the high points on this and to recap that, here's what happened in Hebrews 11, verse 1 through 35.5. They received strength, their son was saved, their future was blessed, they were strengthened to endure, their children were protected, they were saved from their enemy was destroyed, they were protected, they obtained promises, they shut the mouths of lions, they were saved from the fire, they escaped death from the sword, they were made strong, they became powerful in battle, they routed foreign armies, and women received back their dead as they were raised to life again. Can I get an amen on that? And we would all say, sign me up for that contract, right? I mean, I'm with that. I'm down with that. So if my walk with the Lord is looking like Hebrews chapter 11, 1 verses 35.5, then hey, I'm good with that. Like, where do I sign? Why do I need to renegotiate? Everything is wonderful. Everything is fantastic. You know? It's just like I would hoped it would be. I enter into a relationship with the Lord, and the Lord comes through for me at every single turn. My situations are always really, really good. I'm always doing really, really well. The Lord takes care of me at every single turn. That's basically the story of Hebrews 11, verse 1 through 35.5. And we say, sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. Well, there's more to the contract in the practical day-to-day. There's more to the contract. Starting off in the middle of 35, others. Okay, well, let's just see how this contract plays out. Well, others were tortured. Well, that's not so good. I'd rather not be tortured and be delivered, but okay. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they may obtain a better resurrection. And still others had trial of mockings and scourgings. Yes, and of chains and imprisonment. Well, what's up with that? I don't understand how this thing got so negative so quickly. They were stoned. They were sawn in two. They were put to death by the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, and tormented. Well, who would sign up for that? Who would sign up for that? Is that all the contract? Oh, no, there's more. Of whom the world was not worthy, and they wandered in deserts and mountains, in dens and caves of the earth. And all these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise. Did not receive the promise. So to recap 35.5 going forward, well, they were tortured, they were not delivered, they were mocked, they were scourged, they were in chains, imprisoned, stoned, sawn in two, and put to death by the sword. And we say to that contract, oh, no. Well, there's more. Wandered about in sheepskins, wandered about in goatskins, destitute, afflicted, tormented, wandered in deserts, wandered in mountains, wandered in dens, wandered in caves of the earth, and did not receive the promise. You're like, fantastic. I'll just tear that contract up. Right? 1 to verse 35.5, I'll sign on the dotted line twice in permanent ink. And 35.5 moving forward, that's just not for me. That's not the contract I want with you, God. That's not how I want my life to be. That's not how I want it to turn out. And God, it's your responsibility to change this. I mean, if you want me to follow you closely, Lord, it's your responsibility to change all that and to put me in the verse 1 through 35.5 category. And when you do that, maybe we'll talk about me following you closely. But until then, I'll just kind of hang back. Because apparently, you can't handle the situation. Apparently, my life is too big for you to deal with. Apparently, maybe, Lord, you don't know exactly what's going on. Maybe, Lord, you're overrated. Maybe you just can't handle the situation at hand. So what I'm going to do, Lord, I'm going to do you a favor, and I'm just going to take care of my life myself, because I think that I can maybe get out of some sticky situations. Maybe that I won't be tormented. Maybe I won't die by the sword. Maybe I won't just wander around the desert and the caves and all that kind of stuff. Not really a mountain person. I'm a beach person. Don't want to wander around the mountains. So I'm just going to do my own thing. And Lord, you can stay back there. I would just say to you, you need to renegotiate your contract. All of us in the room and watching online need to renegotiate our contract if our thinking is anything like, I can only be a part of the 1 versus 35.5 group. That we need to renegotiate our contract with ourselves and come to terms with certain things. Well, let me ask you a question about these others. Did the others have faith? A couple guys came into my office where we're delivering this piece of furniture from the flood. Not the flood, but the flood we had in the kitchen. Anyway, all right, so they brought in this piece of furniture. They said, well, give us a word, Pastor. Give us a word. So I said, all right. So I read them part of Hebrews chapter 11. Like nobody reads one whole Hebrews chapter 11 in one sitting, right? Like who does that? So I didn't read them the whole chapter. I just read them some verses. And then I talked about the others. And then one guy said, well, the reason that they went through all that because they didn't have faith. I was like, no, to the contrary. To the contrary. They had the exact faith as the others that God delivered. Did the others have faith? Yeah, they did. They certainly did. Did they have enough faith? Did the others have enough faith? You know? Because maybe it was they had faith, but you didn't have enough faith. You ever had anybody say that to you? Well, God would have come through differently for you if you had enough faith. And after you punch them, right? All right? You say, whoa, whoa, whoa. No. I had faith, and I had enough faith. They had enough faith. They had the same, they were commended for their faith. Everyone in Hebrews chapter 11 is commended for their faith. Well, did God love the others? You know, the ones that didn't turn out so well for them. The one, those who were sawn in two. Did God love them? Yeah. He loved them just as equally as he did the ones earlier in the chapter. Well, did the others love God enough? You know, maybe these folks didn't love God enough, or maybe they didn't love God at all or enough. Well, no, that's not the case in this passage. Well, was the Lord disciplining the others? Was he sending the others a message and disciplining those? Well, that's certainly in the realm of possibility, quite frankly. All right, if you look on in chapter 12 of Hebrews. The title in my Bible is God Disciplines His Sons. So certainly it is in the realm of possibility that God can discipline you when you're disobedient to Him. Let's keep that in mind, shall we? That God can and will discipline those who are disobedient to Him. But was the Lord disciplining the others here in chapter 11? No, it doesn't seem to be the case. They were commended for their faith. Had the others fallen out of favor with God? No, it doesn't seem to be the case on that either. Well, did God want the best for the others? Or was God just concerned with the best for those earlier in the chapter? Did God want the best for everyone in chapter 11? Yes. I guess once again, it depends on how you clarify what the best is. See, in your mind, if you think that the best always means easy pathways, right, and that things go well, that may not always be God's best for you. Because you know and I know, we've lived life long enough to know that God will send us through the valleys to make us more like Jesus Christ. And that is actually the best. But did God want the best for the quote-unquote others? Sure He did. Well, was God fair to the others? Because it seems like to me, if I'm looking at this passage, all these people have faith in the Lord at the same level. They're wanting to please the Lord, and they are. And it seems like God came through for some of them, and for others, as we would see it, God did not come through for them. So is that fair on God's part to do that? Is that fair? Well, I don't know, in our life. Is it fair that you prayed for someone to be healed and they were, and someone else to be healed and they weren't? Is it fair that you may be in a different position financially than another brother or sister? Was God fair to the others? Will God be fair to me? I guess it's really at the heart of this whole question, right? If I'm going to live my life for the Lord, and I'm going to put all my chips on the table for the Lord and give Him everything that I have, will God be fair to me? Well, I guess that depends on how you define what fair is. I guess if we're defining fair as maybe the culture at large, or maybe how VBS defines fair, like everybody gets a cookie. How many? One cookie. Everybody gets one cookie. And that's kind of our definition of fair. Well, here I am. I want a cookie. You don't get one. That's not fair. Because everybody gets a cookie, right? apparently, God does not operate maybe in our definition of fairness, because it seems like in Hebrews chapter 11, not everybody got a cookie. In fact, it seems like some of their cookies crumbled from 35.5 on down. So is God fair? Maybe in our definition of fairness or how we see fairness, God would not be fair, because everyone is not treated unilaterally the same on every single front. Well, we still need to renegotiate our contract, right? We still need to renegotiate our contract and say to the Lord, Lord, however you choose to work in my life, whether you choose to deliver me or not to deliver me, that makes no difference in how I live my life for you. And then I'm going to live my life for you. And I'm going to live my life closely to you and intimately to you so that you can use me. But you need to make sure that your contract contains the others clause. We all need to make sure that's in there. Like today we need to, if that is not in your contract, you need to renegotiate that with yourself into your contract today. The reason I say that is because when the tough times come and your world is turned totally upside down, it's going to be a little bit too late to renegotiate your contract and your thinking at that point. Because at that point, your life will be moving so quickly and so out of control, that'll be the last thing on your mind. So you need to make sure that your contract said today, that when you're thinking clearly, when you're seeing things clearly, make sure that your contract contains the others clause. And here's what the other clause simply states: that I may be one of the others. That I may be one of the others. That you may be one of the others. Have you ever been one of the others before? Ooh, the others. The others. Kind of on the outside looking in that particular way, one of the others like that. And you say, well, Elliott, you don't understand, because God would never treat me like one of the others. He would never, ever treat me like that. In my life, all things are always going to turn up heads. Things are always going to go smoothly for me, because that's my God. Well, be careful when you say in that frame, well, that's my God, as if God is obligated to come through for you in that particular way all the time. He's not. He's just simply not. I'm just saying to myself today and to my church family today, as you renegotiate your contract with yourself about what situations you're going to follow the Lord through to put in the contract the others clause, and that you may be at some point in your life, and I would say you will be at some point in your life one of the others. Where you're praying, Lord, come through for me. I know you can do it. I read it in Scripture. I see it in the first part of Hebrews chapter 11, but come through for me. And God at some point may just say, no, that's not my plan for you. That's not my plan. And at that point, what do you do? How closely do you follow? And can we come to the point today in our renegotiations with ourselves to say, I will follow you regardless of my, and you fill in the blank. Regardless of my, you fill in the blank. So we're saying, Lord, in essence, I'm giving you a blank contract, and I want you to fill in all the details. I don't even want to have negotiations in this as far as the terms of the contract, because when I came to you, it was in 100% faith. Our relationship is 100% faith, and so therefore, Lord, you can do whatever you choose to do with my life, because my life is no longer my own. My life is yours. So, Lord, you just fill in how you want my life, the contract to read, if it's the first part of chapter 11 or the back part of chapter 11 or a little bit of both. A little bit of both. Then, Lord, I'm okay with that. But we do know about God that God is holy, right? We do know that about God, correct? That is His primary characteristic, that every other characteristic runs through. That God is holy and God is just. That God is sovereign, which just simply means that God can do whatever He chooses to do. Why is that? Because He's the one in control. right? He's the one who set it all up. He is the sovereign one. God can do whatever he chooses to do, that God is sovereign. We understand that. And that God has all the information. He sees all the information. We don't. And that God is accomplishing. God is accomplishing. God is always on the move, behind the scenes, accomplishing. Accomplishing what? Accomplishing plans for his glory, for himself to receive glory, and to make you more like Jesus Christ. He is always accomplishing those purposes in our life. Whereas through the first circumstances, the first part of Hebrews 11, or more like the circumstances through the back part of Hebrews chapter 11. In Deuteronomy 32, verse 4 says this, that he is the rock. His works are perfect. Even when people are sawn in two, yes, perfect. Even when people are brought back from the dead, yes, perfect. He is the rock. His works are perfect, and all his ways are just. So even in our definition of fairness or justice, that we can never say to God, God, what I'm going through is not fair. What I'm going through is not just. That's simply not the case. You just don't have all the information. I just don't have all the information, and I can't see it, and nor can you see it like God sees it. He's the rock. His works are perfect, and all his ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong, upright and just is he. That's the God that we follow. That's the God that you place your faith in when you place your faith in Jesus Christ. And he said, I'll follow you through whatever may come. Well, what happens to those who never get around to renegotiating their contract? What happens to those who just never get around to it, or just simply will not come to the table and renegotiate with themselves about how God is working? Well, roots start to grow down deep in their heart, down way deep in their life. Those who never renegotiate their contract, those who never come to terms with they may be one of the others at some point in their life. They have roots of frustration, because it's frustrating to them that they would be going through this because their view of how God should treat them is not a biblical reality. And then they get angry at God. They're frustrated and they say, God, I'm mad at you and I'm ticked off at you, and I don't know if I like you anymore. I certainly don't like where you're taking me through all of this. They get angry at God and they get bitter at God. We all know people who have done exactly these things. And they've been angry at God and frustrated at God and bitter at God for the last 25 years of their life. Going back to a situation that they never came to terms with, because they never saw that God had the freedom to work however he chose to work. And that God was accomplishing. They just saw it as they were getting the raw end of the deal. They just saw it as they got the bad end of the contract. They just saw it as this isn't fair, and therefore it could not be God. Or if it was God, I'm going to be very frustrated and very angry and very bitter, and they become very disillusioned. Very disillusioned. And the folks who never renegotiate their contract, it seems, will just sort of fade away. Certainly won't live have an intimate relationship with the Lord. Certainly won't have that. They'll just kind of drift off and fade away. But I will say this to you, that you'll never have a revolution in your life, and nor will I never have a revolution in my life unless I renegotiate my contract. And that revolution, that Jesus period revolution, is never going to come to you unless you say, okay, let's just have a sit down with me and myself and just renegotiate things and rethink things. And once again, come to terms with, God, you can act however you choose to act in my life. And God, I may be one of the others in my life at some point. To renegotiate your contract. I just wonder where we are on that. I wonder where we are on that. The reason this message came about in my heart, I believe that the Lord laid this on my heart, and this message was kind of birthed out of, a lot of us are going through difficult times. I mean, we're all going through difficult times, right? That's just the times that we're in. But specifically, many in our church are going through very difficult physical times, difficult spiritual times, difficult emotional times. They've lost loved ones. They're going through illness, all the above. And for us just to kind of recalibrate, renegotiate, and come to the table. Okay? So that is, quite frankly, the invitation today. That you would come to the table and say yes to Jesus Christ, going back to contract number 1, which was about salvation. But that in contract number 2, that you would just come to terms, and I'm talking to your pastor as well, that I would come to terms with, hey, you know what, Lord, I give you the freedom in my life to be the other. And I'm not going to rebel against you when that happens.